Uh, Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Cerberus. I am Peyman Askari. I'm joined by my co-host André Meloche. This is episode 60, and we are airing on Saturday, January 17th, 2026. Andre, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. It is quite cold here, so I still feel that we're in Canada. And I've heard that latest news that Tim will not be here tonight because he was with Mark Carney in Beijing and he missed his flight, so he will have to come back tomorrow on the next plane.
He's switched side.
So,
He's not with the PPC anymore.
well. So, hi Tim. Next week we will do the episode in Mandarin.
Uh, Man, I'm just thinking. The amount of times I've done podcasts with Canadians and they complain about how freaking cold it is. I think we should start putting this in like political party constitutions. Whereas this is a country formed of ice, we support a frozen tundra. It's a part of our culture.
You could see, the new immigrants who arrive here. If they are usually it's very funny when they arrive in summer. Oh, it's so great. The country is so great. It's so nice. If they arrive in winter, you don't see them. You see them only in May, and they don't understand what is this white powder. No, it's not cocaine. Uh, it's snow.
When I was at York University, there's this exchange student from Nigeria. He didn't survive very long. He just couldn't do it. He had the world's biggest ski jacket, but he's like, it's too cold for me. I'm going back.
Well, must be complexion and DNA. Look at Russian people. The what they call the winter baptized, or they go into water, cold water. I think it's January 7 because it's Orthodox Christmas, and they go and they baptize themselves, and they go in. They cut the ice and they go there. So it is quite. I never had the chance to try it,
I
but
saw I saw a video. It was actually in Russia where husband and wife and their child, they were doing that, and the wife jumped in the water, the ice, the hole in the ice, but there was a current and it dragged her and she drowned.
mm, well, some collateral damage of winter.
It'll happen. Yeah.
Yes, and the event this week were entertaining for
I
many
mean,
people.
I guess it's entertaining. I mean, it's like a drama, a movie where the bad guy is winning.
Well, you're describing Hollywood, I suppose.
Mark Carney
Well,
is
if
doing a
you
Hollywood production.
and if you compare Hollywood with the Chinese informant, no, it's Michael Ma.
Michael, he went with
Uh,
Carney, didn't he?
yes, he was there. He was there. I used to say, he was there. He's like a lamp. Now we say Philippine lamp. They're beautiful. They bring some light, but that's about it.
Salim Mansour, he described the 343 MPs as a lamppost. He's like, you could replace them with a lamppost; it wouldn't make a difference.
It would make a difference. But yes, I think there's a lot of people who would agree with him, considering what we are facing politically on the political spectrum. It is not very. It's entertaining, but it's not very funny, in a sense. If you bring the quote that I would like to refer to, just so we can get the ambience, put our audience in the mood. I'm reading actually Logos Rising from Michael Jones, and he's in this book he's describing the history of philosophy, the history of Logos, which is reason, through the ancient Greek and the Roman Empire, then the arrival of Muhammad and the Islam, and then before that the Persian invasion, and we can talk about Iran a little bit later. And he's arriving at a point where he's describing science, modern science, and he's referring to the end of an era, which is the fall of an empire. And in his, I found this quote very interesting. He writes, "Once popular states become corrupt, they descend into a state of skepticism and then decadence, in which learned fools feel to calumniating the truth. When this happens, the commonwealth falls from a perfect liberty into the perfect tyranny of anarchy, or the unchecked liberty of the free people, which is the worst of all tyrannies." End quote. Why I refer to this? It's because I think about the last one of the declaration of Donald Trump, when somebody asked him, "Is there anything or anybody that can stop you from doing what you're doing now?" And he answered, he said, "No, the only thing that can stop me, as President of the United States, is my own moral." I wanted to say, wow, does this man have a moral code? It is not obvious, because what he's doing actually is breaking not only all the rules, not the international law or the international community. I really never believed in this. But what he's doing that now is reshuffling all the cards, and he's maybe showing what was not apparent before. The international conflict between superpower, China, Russia, United States, and we can just overthrow European Union, because economically speaking, they're not there. So I think up to a certain point, what we're seeing actually, it's a war between titan above institution, above government, and they are trying to create new alliance. I think many political analysts this week were doing reference to the superpower, the super state, the era of empire. You can go back to the Russian Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the British Empire, which does not exist anymore economically, but financially it does, because the city of London still has all the structure of power. The Bank of International Settlement, the Central Bank of Central Bank. So economically speaking, I think there's something above that is happening that we don't see. Maybe that's why it can explain the trip of Mark Carney to Beijing. What is happening at the higher level of the power? We can have many opinions, but I try to just observe what is happening and try to understand the long tendency in history, which is not easy.
Andre, I can't talk about. I've had a long week. Donald Trump, like, I don't listen to what he says anymore. I try to look at the moves, like what they do. But let's start by talking about Mark Carney. I did an episode with my friend Jason James yesterday, and we're trying to understand. Donald Trump is about to get Greenland. He's got Alaska. He's just kidnapped the president of Venezuela. He's locking down. He's announced that he wants to lock down the Western Hemisphere, the Arctic Circle. And Mark Carney goes and sides with America's number one declared enemy. If you read the National Security Strategy document, they give Russia a pass, but they single out China as the threat. What do you think he's hoping to accomplish?
I think he's just a clerk. He's not, I think we can talk about, I will not talk about Brookfield, or I will not talk about all those hedge funds that are always above laws and above the economy, the monopoly of banks. But I think he's just a clerk, and he's just fulfilling orders to create chaos between what should be a natural alliance between two countries. First of all, the empire, the United States of America is an empire that ruled for the last 75 years over the planet in many ways. And we can talk about the dollar as a reserve currency, but as a trading currency, and creating chaos between two, what we would say, natural allies. Canada, which is a country of NATO, United States, and the European Union. What is happening with Greenland is, strategically speaking, a way for United States to keep the hegemony on America, which includes Canada, South America, and the North in the Arctic. And I think that they want to reposition themselves as a superpower. But that you can do it on paper. It takes time to be able to realign all those alliance or those bilateral agreement. We used to have this tendency of having multilateral agreement, with the Canada, Mexico, and United States free trade agreement. Now it's like you have to go and deal with bilateral negotiation, and you will not fulfill free market like I think we know, or like we've known it for the last 40 years. It is something that is arriving very fast, but it's a signing a treaty or an agreement or an alliance is one thing. We can think about the memory of understanding that Mark Carney signed with Daniel Smith. There will be no pipeline. It's a memorandum of understanding. It's something that they agree on paper. After that, you need strategic plan, economic plan based on a 5-year tendency, a 10-year tendency, especially with those great infrastructure. It doesn't take one day. It's what I call reality TV. They sign the contract, they smile on camera, but in reality, the tendency is much more long. So I think that we will see how it will unfold, because Trump is going fast, because he will arrive in midterm. And midterm, if considering what is happening in the United States with the Minnesota scandal, how they try to use the regime change strategy in Iran, I don't say they're in panic, but they're losing ground. Now the American dollar represents about 60% of the global trade, compared to what was 75% in maybe 10 years ago. Because many countries now, they're signing bilateral agreement in yuan, in rupee, in ruble, and they are not bound to the American dollar. Even now, some countries in Africa are getting out from SWIFT, the banking system, the international banking system between. So I think they're seeing it, they're feeling it. What will happen is that they will accelerate the conflict, to make sure that they can discover who they can rely on. Now, sometimes you will force the hand of somebody to see if the person you can trust the person. I think Donald Trump is acting like this, and I think also he's badly advised. He's badly advised by many people. That's why he's like not coherent. Many people are saying that he's changing his mind all the time. One day he's saying something, the next day he's saying the opposite. What happened with Iran last week. Suddenly he changed completely his narrative. So he's not somebody who's mature, and somebody who's in control will not act like this. You would expect this from a teenager, not from a 79-year-old man.
So the free trade thing, I want to come back to that, and I think free trade, it ties into the internet censorship and segregation that's about to happen. But I want to go back to Mark Carney. Let's play a little game. Our fellow friend Timothy Knight, let's say he's King Charles. Me, I'm Mark Carney, and you are Anita Anand. So me, the clerk, as you put it, the king comes to the clerk and says, Mark, you will go to China and you will, establish relations with Beijing, and we need to stall Donald Trump. And I say, yes, sir. And I turn to you and I say, Anita, we're going to start a conflict with the most powerful, most armed nation on the planet with the largest economy, and they have the prime reserve currency, and there's a 5,500-mile border between us. And why would you say yes? Like you're jeopardizing me, Mark Carney. Maybe I'm an idiot, but Anita Anand, like she's selfish enough to only care about her political career. Why is she doing this?
Well, no, they're just executing orders. It will not jeopardize her career. She will be recycled in another job. Think about Annalena Baerbock, who was a Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Germany. Now she's a senior advisor in the United Nations. Those people, they make a lot of money. They have a path with their career. Their career is not in danger. They will just continue to implement things like this because they're not part of the decision. And maybe that's what I'm writing an article now. It's called The Chinese Torture. I will publish it eventually. I'm referring to the bureaucracy, and we're all part of this structure, this big gear system. So I think that they play the game because they are not affected economically. Do you see any MPs who is affected economically, especially when they vote themselves raises every year based on inflation, real inflation? So let's say you earn $225,000 as an MP, and you have a raise every year. It follows inflation and the real inflation, not the inflation calculated by the Statistic Canada. They are not affected by that. They're the class that is affected that is above us. We are not, and there's a lot of civil servants who are in this position because they have a lot of money. They have a lot of money.
JT says, Andre, look at Chrystia Freeland. They just move on to some other globalist position.
Well, he's right. JT is right because you can reshuffle the card and you can just place them somewhere else. It works as long as they comply with the system, the structure of the system. Where I see something that is different, it is you always arrive at an era, let's say 1945, 2025, it is 80 years. 80 years of a system starts to decay into bureaucracy. And one day, we're all part of this. I'm not excluded from that. I have a responsibility toward what is happening. It's not only the mainstream media, the politician, the political party. Every person has a responsibility. What is this responsibility? Disengagement toward the political sphere, the lack of education, the lack of understanding big issues, selfishness. Those are all. We will defend our own self-interest. Tim is always referring to hug your children, take care of your family. I do agree with that. But take care of your family. There's some people who will say, first of all, I will put God first. Then I will put my family in second place, and third place, I will work for society. What did we do in the last 50 years with the decline in demography? So the structure of power forced immigration, for example, to replace a population that was lured into what we're seeing now, the demographic decline. And you cannot have a strong society or a strong country if your citizens are not engaged. What happened, for example, in Russia in 2000, from 1992 to 2000, with what we call the perestroika era, the decline in the demography was extremely fast. The pace was very fast, up to a point where the population was losing faith in the future. The expectancy of life, the life expectancy in 1999 was 64 years for a man and 66 years for a woman. It now it improved after 25 years of I would say the era of Vladimir Putin, but it is still very low. All the Western countries, they're all their birth rate is falling everywhere. So I think the superpower is starting to understand that even if you implement AI or if you use mass immigration, you have to be able to integrate those people. Else you will create internal conflict.
Uh, Early, just the beginning of your comments, you mentioned that it doesn't jeopardize their career. These people get shuffled around. This might be bad timing, and people are romanticizing about the Shah of Iran and the former king and bring him back, and everything was great. People were pissed off in '79, like the Shah of Iran, Shah is Farsi for king. The monarch had stolen so much money, so much of the wealth of the people. His sister was such a corrupt SOB, and she was running everything that when the revolution happened, they started killing people that were affiliated with the government, even if they weren't guilty. They almost killed my dad because he bid on a government tender. And people are pissed off in Canada. How much longer are the Canadians going to take these legislators doing these outrageous things like giving themselves raises, pegging their salary to inflation, starting a war with the most powerful country on the planet just because it's politically expedient for your party? And I look at these legislators, like the gentleman that's elected in my riding, his family lives in my riding. If he keeps messing up like this, Canadians are the dumbest people on the planet. They're complacent, but at some point, even they're going to have enough, and this could turn into violence. It's happened in Iran. I'm surprised it hasn't happened already.
It did not happen already. It happened, but we're not seeing it. It is happening in major cities, in Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal. Those big cities. We saw the riots or the protests for Palestine, or the way people are antagonized by ideologies. They are just weapons. It will happen. Canada is not an aggressive country in a sense that, or people, Canadian are not aggressive. They still believe that they can agree with their neighbors through dialogue, but it doesn't work. First of all, if you don't speak the language, if you don't have a rational discussion, men cannot be women, men cannot give birth to. But you look at those ideology that were completely created to manipulate minorities. And you referred to Iran. I don't know a lot about Iran, but since a couple of months, I follow an Iranian analyst through my wife, because she speaks Russian, and all her analysts are quite accurate, because you refer to the Islamic power, and the fact that the Shah was overthrown was maybe a reaction, a very violent reaction that brought some authority in the country. But on the other side, you had this type of repression, and where I disagree with most analysts in the Western world is because we always paint ourselves as moral people, and we always try to see the opponent or the antagonist, like Iran, for example, as not suited for our Canadian values. I would like to remind people that here we never had a debate on abortion. We don't have this type of debate. That's one example. We don't have this type of debate because we try to avoid real issues. In Iran, what happened? They tried this regime change stratagem. It did not work. I don't necessarily agree with the power, but I'm sorry, I will not go and give advice to a country where my own country is actually collapsing, economically speaking and morally speaking. We don't have any moral code anymore in Canada, and the all those politicians, civil servants, they're just above the law. And as soon as you enter the group, and we call this VIP, very important person, as soon as they go in, first of all, they have to swear allegiance, loyalty. They cannot speak, and after that, their career is done. You know what? You run for the People's Party. You would have been elected in a party, a major party. You would have had to swear allegiance to the leader. Huh? You had on your podcast with Chris Erickson and GP Berg, you had Derek Sloan. I still remember when I had the interview with Derek Sloan. Derek Sloan was saying, "Well, it's the line of the party. You don't debate here. You're here to represent a structure of the party, not you don't represent your constituents." So we arrive at the point where people are just fed up of this and they just disengage completely with the consequences that will happen eventually.
I I just take this moment to ask if everybody could share the space, the stream. Maybe Andre and I, we can increase our viewership for today. This is an important topic in light of what's happening. Andre, like I'm listening to what you're saying, and you're talking about, we're quick to judge Iran, basically paint them as immoral, and we have the moral high ground, and I look at the beware the followers. Thank you for sharing the stream. Like our culture has changed. If you remember a few years ago under the Trudeau administration, they almost started a war. Well, not a war, but an incident with Saudi Arabia because they were talking about women's rights. So they want to reach into Saudi Arabia and pressure them to be more feminist. Meanwhile, in Canada, like this feminist movement has eroded the family unit. You could say the same thing about the gay rights movement and definitely the trans movement. We never had this debate. Our birth rates have plummeted. Canada does not have replacement level birth rates, and we're going around the world and we're boasting about how we're so progressive in Canada. You notice whenever they criticize a Middle Eastern country, they always portray them as like knuckle dragging cavemen. They're throwing gay people off of buildings. They're marrying 9-year-old girls. I'm not saying these things don't happen in isolation, but in Alabama, somebody kidnaps a black girl and beats her to death. It doesn't mean the rest of America is racist. So we have we have a lot to answer for ourselves as well. And I go around to my fellow Canadians and I try to tell them, like, let's fix our problems at home. But for whatever reason, they're more outward looking, or as you say, like the SIM card, they're easily distracted. This thing happened in the Middle East, Iran. We got to get the Islamic regime out. How about we get the liberal regime out of Canada?
That's a very hard question because politically speaking, is it really the Liberal Party who is governing, or is it the Privy Council? And is it something uh, that we do not understand? We're still a constitutional monarchy here. So even if all the institution, we have the House of Commons are there on paper, when it's time to uh, test those systems, we see that they fail. I think you were having an interview with Luc Sabourin today. I think I watched a little bit his testimony, and I was not shocked. I was not surprised. I understand that many whistleblowers are caught because they want they want to keep their integrity. When they see something is wrong, they will just go and tell them their superior that it is wrong. It is not uncommon today that what we're seeing. We saw it in 2022 with the Freedom Convoy. Last 2 weeks ago, Scott Ritter in the United States, he was debanked from his bank, and he was explaining this week to Judge Napolitano, Andrew Napolitano, what really happened. It is not uncommon. We think that we are protected. We think that we have a charter. We think that we have a constitution. We think that we live in a free country. But when we face a real conflict locally, provincially, nationally, we understand that the system is completely infiltrated by people who don't care about what you think or what you do. They will just apply rules according to the bureaucracy. And I'm not I'm not convinced that we will be able to change this unless we face a hard time. Hard time meaning an economic reset. I think the economic reset can come faster because they want to implement the net zero agenda, which is complete nonsense. There's no such thing as a climate change uh, 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 perpetrated by man. It is not something that happens like this. And the narrative is not, I think it is falling, but they try to save the boat, to save the ship. So it will accelerate. We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, I think, Tim, you and I, about what will happen before 2030. It's accelerating now. I just say, do we have a political solution? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And the expression "the new world order," it's something that everybody use since 40 years. George Bush Sr. was using it. They all used it. I still remember Nicolas Sarkozy was president of France in 2007. He did a speech and he said, "We are going toward this new world order." That was 2007, 1 year before the financial crisis. And he said, everybody will go toward this new world order, whether they like it or not. That was Sarkozy. That was practically 20 years ago. It never changed. We're always aiming at the same goal, the new world order. Today, now we have AI, we have data center, we have a war of drone that we could never have expected. This type of new technology in war. It changed all the strategy of war. All those tools that are used in war, let's not forget, one day when the war will be over, they will use it on the civil society. Let's not be naive. They will spy on us. They spy on us. I was watching EMJ Live yesterday, and he was showing a small clip with Jonathan Greenblatt, who is the leader of the ADL. And he said, "We watch you, we see you, we check everything, all small podcast, video, YouTube. We check everything because they want to target anti-Semitism, but the idea is not anti-Semitism. It is mass control."
Andre, you said, I don't know if there's a political solution to this. I see now that politics is not about saving the country. Politics is not about changing the direction of the country. Politics is an application to a position in government. So there's a job opening, and as a candidate, you go and you say, I'm willing to, I'm willing to do whatever is necessary in the job requirements set out. Whereas when I ran in April, and I suspect you did this too, we were trying to save the country. What we need to understand, when people say politics is downstream from culture, they don't just mean politics is slightly influenced by culture and our politicians are subject to the constraints of that culture. They literally mean like the culture is the cancer and politics is the pus. Like, to try to go in expecting Pierre Polyev to fix us when we're the problem is it's not going to happen. That's not why that's not what politics is designed for. So all the change has to come through the people, through the culture, which is why I'm focusing on educating the people. I know you, Andre, have been in the last few weeks talking about how we can federate podcasters, and what we're really trying to say is we need to save this country, and we cannot be the political class.
What you're mentioning is very interesting because think about Pierre Poilievre, for example, or the conservative movement or the conservative party. You and me, you're younger than me, but when we started to engage, you engaged a little bit earlier than me in the People's Party. You were doing all your podcasts. We were still naive,
Mhm.
naive in the sense that we in good faith we said to ourselves, okay, I will go and serve my constituent. I will go and help and give back what I received, what you did, for example, when you ran in the last election. And you understand very well that we were naive because we thought that we would be able to have a rational debate with people. It doesn't work like that. And you just mentioned it. You apply for the job, and they have requirement, and you propose your resume, and if they select you, it's because they want to hire you. They have requirements, and you have to fulfill those requirements because you have thousands of people who wants to have the same job, who starts with a job of $185,000 the first year, and you have what, a high school degree. If you comply, maybe they will hire you. I remember there was a woman. I'm sorry, I don't have any. It's not a moral judgment. She was a bartender, and she was a bartender in Quebec. And in 2011, she ran for the NDP under Jack Layton, and she was in Las Vegas when the night of the election, and she was elected. The next day, she swears alliance, and she has a salary of an income of $155,000 plus expense. Wait a second, there's no such thing, and because we have universal suffrage and everybody can apply for the job, everybody should be able to represent its constituent. So it doesn't mean that you need a PhD in politics or in political science. But the idea is that a lot of people look at politics like, wow, if I have the chance to be at the right place at the right time, maybe tomorrow I will have an income of $200,000. That's You don't have a lot of company who works like that. It doesn't. So the structure of the system is a big business. You mentioned it yourself. It's a big business. You hire employees, and it's the same thing with the bureaucrats. Same thing with civil servant people who work for the government. They are paid a lot. Now their salary is what I was watching, just the bracket of salary for people who works for the government, and they always start about $80,000. That's the basic income. So that's go in the public sector, unless you have a master in computer programming, or you have a master or you're a doctor. And even a doctor, I'm not even sure they're doing that kind of money, unless they are promoting a pharmaceutical company. But it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and you arrive after 1 year. Wow, first year of income, $150,000 plus a chauffeur. You can imagine that. So there, people are seeing politics as an opportunity instead of a place where you will meet people, you will discuss with them, you will debate, you will disagree, and you will spend long hours reading bills, trying to understand what they mean for the people. They don't do that. Maybe that's why I remember last year when I decided not to run for the People's Party, I told myself, damn, I didn't think about something. What if I'm elected?
We couldn't
I was
possibly
say,
do a worse job than they're doing right now.
no, but you have to spend all your day in the circus with all those clowns. You can imagine you sit next to all those clowns and they're on their phone and they don't listen, that they make jokes, and you know, I'm it is a caricature, it is caricature, of course, but you understand very well when we look at the what is happening in the House of Commons, the debates. Sometimes I say I cannot sustain that for more than 2 3 minutes. 2 3 minutes.
That's kind of where I was going to go with. JT made a comment. He goes, "It's a big business that never stops growing unless the people stop it." Um, I don't pay attention to the what is it, the debate period
The
in
debate,
Parliament.
yes.
Yeah,
Question
it's just
period.
useless. Question period. It's useless. It's absolutely useless. You get dumber instead of reading a book, instead of actually looking at the news. It's a waste of time. Yesterday or the day before, the Supreme Court of Canada denied the government's request to appeal the Mosley decision, which rendered the
Yes.
Emergency Measures Act usage unconstitutional and unlawful. When the Mosley decision came out, I was ecstatic, and I read it, every single word, multiple times, and I was talking about it on podcasts. When this happened, I no longer have faith in our institutions. So I look at that, I'm like, well, probably Mark Carney went to the Supreme Court and said right now is not a good time to so flagrantly violate the law. So let's just let this one pass. We'll get it back another day somehow. And the only way I see that we can, let me get this comment out of here. The only way that we can actually heal this country is through people like you and me, ordinary people, or Derek Sloan, Jason James, Chris Erickson, maybe Dallas Brody, maybe. And we have to fix our own problems. We can't rely on political parties, and unfortunately we can't rely on our institutions, which means the courts, which means the RCMP, which means the military, the tribunals, the law societies. These things they're all bankrupt.
uh, everybody has a karma. You can use the word karma. Everybody has a destiny, and you have to fulfill your destiny. You don't know what God, what the plans of God for you or me. I could say many people, or I could say many people will say, "Oh, I'm atheist, and God does not have plan for me because God does not exist." Well, maybe God does not have a plan for you, but maybe your government does. And maybe you will prefer to have free will that God granted you, that the control of the government. We never ask ourselves, how come we arrive at this state of decay of our society? I would talk about the Western civilization, but not only this civilization. It's a global problem. Like I said, the people are tired of those institutions. It's and all the structure of power. They are good in the sense that we have all those philosopher, writer, lawyer who wrote for many centuries about the Western civilization, how we should run it, and the concept of democracy. And we arrive at a point and we look at those on paper and say, this is great. This is 2,000 years or 3,000 years of evolution or progress. And slowly, and we know Machiavelli, we know all those writers who warned us about, the will of the prince. But it's people who are implementing those policies. It's up to them to ask themselves, what am I doing? Is it right or wrong? Am I advocating for the truth? Am I benefiting from the system? There's nothing wrong about having to benefit from a system if you fulfill your duty. There's a checks and balance, and we don't have this anymore. They get out, or they have, every time they manipulate the system, they get away with it every time. SNC Lavalin with Trudeau, and so many scandals that we don't even count them anymore. And people are so tired that they say, well, okay, One more. But the problem is you strangle the middle class, and slowly you strangle them up to a point where you will deprive them of everything. And they will have to, well, when they will starve, when they will lose their house, in I refer to the private property, but the private property is the law of the land. Where do I stay? Do can I what if I have a passport, a Canadian passport, I can go from BC to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland without being asked to identify myself. I don't have to. Technically, by law, I don't have to, unless I have a speed limit. I go fast. So it's technically on paper we have a country. Uh, in reality, doesn't work like that. And this decay relies on each and every one of us. We're all responsible at different level, and I cannot blame the mainstream media. I cannot blame all the politicians, because we have to ask ourselves, where do we stand? We can compare the system, but me personally, I start like this. I try to make good things every day, like Tim mentioned all the time. Hug your children, engage locally. That's the best we can do. And like you said, read, read a book, disconnect yourself from media. And I saw last week, it was quite fascinating. I'm not connected on mainstream media at all, but sometimes I go and check just for the fun of it. And I was watching the alternative media on the Iran crisis, and it was as awful as it was in mainstream media. Everything is polarized, and up to a point where you look at that and you say, okay, where's the truth? We don't know. We don't know. The best thing to do is to disconnect yourself, because you create your own anxiety.
Yeah, the Iran crisis, I guess we can shift to that in a moment. It did not only is it polarizing, it's the level of disinformation, if I can use that word, is just next level. I'm trying to understand, what's gone wrong. We started the show talking about trade, and you said, the concept of free trade, you believe it's going to start ending, and I look at families in Canada. And whereas you had a family unit that was independent, and a family unit was like a factory, the dad gets the coal, the mom changes the diaper, the kids help with the sweeping, like you have a routine, and then you engaged in almost like trade with the government, where you assign certain services to the government because the government can do it more efficiently. Instead of you protecting your wife and kids, you have law enforcement, for example. Instead of you working all your life and putting your money in savings, you have pensions. Instead of maybe my mom used to, for example, check the blood pressure for my father. Instead of doing that, you have universal health care. And past a certain point, I think we passed the point of no return. We passed the tipping point, and governments like, hey, hold on, I'm more powerful than these people. Society is no longer individuals working together, it's the government and individuals it allows to exist. And now government's just completely running roughshod, and the people are panicking because in order to go back to that old system, they actually have to be responsible. That's how a view into the mind of Peyman Askari.
You're right, responsible, but this is not new. The welfare state since 1945 promised, prosperity for everybody, the American dream of having a house, a car, uh, raising a family, going to a football, baseball game with your son, or bringing your little daughter to the skating rink so she can take courses, ice skating, figure skating, whatever you would have chosen at this time. Uh, the idea of welfare state is has ended, because now I think it will be might makes right. But you read The Prince of Machiavelli and you understand very well that this is not new. That when the prince is too powerful, one day he will be overthrown. And it is I think we're not far from this tipping point where people will start to question not only the institution, but the people who are part of it. And they will also ask themselves, but why are they so corrupted, or why are they so not sensitive? They don't have any empathy toward our problem. This is a lack of moral culture, and we're all part of this. I think that we will not go back to a system like this until we face hard time, and hard time will see a decrease in our quality of life. And we can talk about the conflict between generation. Younger generation, they feel and they see that they will not be able to have the same quality of life or level of life. And I can make just a small uh, comment about what we call the quality of life. The quality of life, it is if it is only consumerism and materialism, I'm sorry, that does not work. Because the more you have goods, the more you want some. And there's always it's always, the good is always empty. You have a new car, but the next year you want to change your car because your neighbor has a better car. And you always, we are in this battle, but this is the end of it. This is the end of it. 40, 60, 70, 75 years. Now we are some to consume less, to eat our house less, to stop eating meat, all those fake ideologies, or all those ideologies that are not based on nothing except the propaganda of the powerful. We will not see something, we will not see, unless the system, or the structure of the system collapse, we will not see a change. It only comes from people. You mentioned grassroots movement, educating people. This can take a generation, 20 years. 20 years. Because people now, young generation who gets out of college and university, they were nurtured with this for 20 years. Do you think it will be easy for them to change their way of thinking, their behavior? What do we see with younger people who are on the protest line? And they really believe what they were told for 15 years. Up to a certain point, I cannot blame them. I would be 20 today, and I would be in a university. Most probably, I would be for LGBT movement, and I would be for Soji, and because I would be indoctrinated. Those institutions were supposed to help people acquire critical thinking. It is not true anymore, and it's a long time that it is not true. But we didn't want to see it.
Yes, I was talking to, I had a guest on, ordinary guy like you and me, and he was explaining the origins of higher education universities, specifically in Ontario. And he goes, originally it was run by the churches, the clergy. And for whatever reason, the government wanted to give tax incentives to normalize it. And at first it made sense. So instead of the clergy paying for it, the people pay for it. And then bit by bit, they removed the religious component of it. And religion is not just, the Ten Commandments. It was also, they were teaching philosophy. And now they're teaching, bit by bit, like feminism, queer theory, how legumes can be transsexual. And now it's just a waste of money. And if anything, it's worse than a waste of money, because it's, like you said, you're indoctrinating the next generation. This goes back to my example of how, it used to be the family unit, now power's drifted to the government. The government doesn't want to give that power up. Bureaucracy is, that's their new religion. That's their cash cow. Peyman Askari and André Meloche are talking about firing 80% of the public sector, they're like, hell no, I like my second home.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned university. University. They were created. I think it is now 16th century in Padua in Italy. The structure of university during Renaissance, which is supposed to be universal. You're teaching great knowledge. You have master and you have apprentice or you have student, and they learn from a master philosophy, but mathematics, physics, biology, and through years, through decades or century, it was improving. The structure of university is supposed to be the summum of knowledge. Today, it is not. It is not like that, and the decay, I think, started after the French Revolution, because after the French Revolution, the state was separated by the church. And I can say, in Quebec in 1960, with the what they call the Quiet Revolution, all the practically all the teachers in university in Quebec were priests until 1960. So it is quite recent. And then you have this secular movement that created the new college and university, where you teach more progressive ideas, but they're not progressive. What's feminism? What is feminism? Feminism, it is a way to empower women, to bring them into the labor force so they will pay more taxes. The beast is growing, and all those institutions, they're part of the mechanism. We cannot change them from the inside. The deacon or the CEO, if you can call it like this, of a university, he's making what, $300,000 per year or $400,000 per year. Do you think he will be honest? No, he's just fulfilling his own interest. We can see I've discovered this 5 years ago when we were in the full COVID chaos. The Montreal University, it is the research foundation, and it is the title. It is the Pfizer Montreal University for research. It's not the Montreal University Pfizer. It's Pfizer who is sponsoring the research in those in biology. You cannot expect somebody who will finance you to ask you to be follow the money. And this is a long tendency since 1945. I think that is ending. We are arriving at the end of an era. What will be the next one? I think it will be the era of empire. They will secure their alliance at the top, and we will just watch the show. Carney, most probably Carney is maybe a gambit or something like this. He's used to derail the system, or to make sure that this alliance will never be implemented. All those regime change in Iran, in Syria. It was a regime change. In Venezuela now it's the same thing. I think it's an old stratagem, and it's not working anymore. You scream because you scream that there's a wolf. After 3-4 times, when the wolves really arrive, he eats you, because nobody believes in you anymore. You're never late, Clown World. It's a never-ending conversation.
The party doesn't start until Clown World shows up. What are we? We're at an hour now. I wanted to mention something, Andre. So you're talking about how in the 1960s in Quebec, all the teachers were priests, and we've secularized. And now
majority of them, yes.
Okay, majority. And then our state secularizes, and we project ourselves outwardly as progressive, and we're trying to export that progressive whatever that view. And now I'm talking about the Middle East. I'm not a Muslim, and I can't stand that religion. It's not for me. But like we've corrupted ourselves, and now we're trying to export that corruption by criticizing other countries that are now like we were in the 60s. So we've abandoned our faith, and we're attacking people that have faith, like Saudi Arabia, like Iran, I don't know, like UAE. Now, I might not agree with those people. I was thinking about that case in Saudi Arabia where the girls ran out of a burning building and they didn't have their hijab on, so they pushed them back in the building and they all burned to death. I'm not agreeing with it, but it just feels like we're schizophrenic. You know,
Mm.
we've harmed ourselves by abandoning our faith, and now we're demanding everybody else who abandons their faith as well.
You mentioned Saudi Arabia or Iran, or you mentioned Islam. Iran is in majority it is Shiite. It's not Sunnite. What I'm discovering in a person that in the book of Michael Jones, Logos Rising, is describing Iran. Is describing Islam as a way to deprive people of free will. Islam would say everything is made by God. Even the Quran is an eternal text. It was made by God. It is not written by man, and man cannot change nothing in the Quran. So you have the roots of the will of the caliph. The person who's in power says, I will implement Islam, and you have to follow my law because I'm more powerful. That's interesting because it just evacuates what we call the logos, the reason. And you arrive with this religion of Islam, and they say, okay, I'm powerful, I will implement my will. It's my will that will prevail. And after that, I think Machiavelli described this very much with Laurent de Médicis in the 16th, 17th century. How when you're powerful, you can implement what your opinion. The truth is the opinion of the powerful. So we arrive where in Canada, for example, we got rid of Christianity in a sense. Do we still believe in God? Do we still believe in logos? And we arrive because we put, for example, economy first, prosperity, economy, capitalism, and we arrive at a point where our moral is decaying, and then we say, okay, how can we reinstore this moral? Or let's borrow another type of religion. Let's borrow from Islam, and we will try to implement some of the idea of Islam so we can rebuild the moral code that we lost. We cannot use another operating system because it doesn't fit with us. For example, how do we treat women? How do we treat women in a structure? I will not say in Catholicism or Protestantism, but let's say in Christianity in general, we treat women as equal in the sense that a human being, but the woman is also different biologically than a man. Every man is different, every woman is different, but we all speak one language, so we understand each other. You cannot try to implement this operating system or Islam, for example, in Canada, because many women will say, wait a second, after 40 years of feminism, I'm free. I don't want to wear a hijab or a niqab, and I do not. I'm considered the equal of a man. We grew up in this environment. Now you have most countries where you have Islam, the Emirat, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and all those satellites of ex-Soviet Union, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, the hijab is banned. How come in Canada we want to implement those values here? It's because our moral code is so destroyed that we try to find something that will that will restore the moral code. It doesn't work. And then on the other side, you said something important: schizophrenia. We will condemn mutilation of little girl, but we will permit gender surgery in Canada, which it is like a complete contradiction. And you arrive and you just have this conversation with somebody who will tell you that children of 6 years old can have gender surgery, and you compare this to the mutilation of young girl in Islamic country, and people, they will be completely speechless. They don't know what to answer because it's a schizophrenic position. It does not fit the narrative. It is not rational. We are irrational and immature in the Western world, not only Canada.
No, I agree. I just want to bring up one comment from JT before we can end the show. Upwards to 25% of Ontario's Ontarians work for the public sector. Like, this is beyond unsustainable. Like, this is, we're entering slavery territory. This would be like every family of four has one person who's a quadriplegic confined to the bed, and the other three have to support them and feed them and bathe them. That's what a public sector employee is to me. Is a dependent that just it burns a hole in my pocketbook.
He's right. It's an ogre. It's an ogre that eats more and more and more, and it's like in ancient Greek, I forgot the name of the god, but he was condemned to eat endlessly, but to feel hunger endlessly. Every time he was eating, it was just creating more hunger. And I forgot the name of the god. We are in this situation where the state has no boundaries. That's why we cannot think that moral law or even natural law are enough to refrain the hubris of man. We need something greater than us. What is it? How come we arrive at a point where those superstructure are just growing and growing? And Canada is not a big country. Economically speaking, it's not a big country with the GDP we have, even if we have a lot of natural resources, very badly developed. They're still, again, starting to talk about high-speed train in Canada. It's been 60 years that I hear that we will have a high-speed train. They have 3,000 kilometers of high-speed train in China. 3,000 kilometers of high-speed train in China. I don't even want to talk about France. France is a great country. They have the high-speed train, the network of high-speed. Today it is starting to decay, but when I was going to France, I was always impressed by the high-speed train everywhere. France is not a big country. Quebec is 4 times bigger than France. But you can go from Paris to Bordeaux in 2 hours. That's incredible. And you don't have to go to security measure like you do in an airport. You just go in the train and it's very comfortable. But that's France. Same thing in Germany. But in China, 3,000 kilometers. Here, what do we have? It's a very big country, Canada, very poorly developed in terms of infrastructure. And there's some room for this, but you need integrity. You need people. If you want to implement capitalism, you need people who will have integrity. It's a joke now, the electric train in Montreal, the electric network is always stopped. And now there was an article in Radio Canada. I was just laughing. They were saying, "Oh, is the electric train that was implemented by the Quebec Pension Plan, what 3 years ago, is it made for our Nordic environment?" I said, "What the fuck?" You ask yourself this question 3 years after you put in operation the system. It's a joke. It's a real joke. And now they will put a trolley bus tramway in Quebec City. It will cost $11 billion. Who is implementing those big infrastructure that are not working? That's not working. Brookfield most probably will be the same thing. They will have, they will try to implement an electric vehicle system that is not working. It does not work. What was that 49,000 car that will be implemented in China? China does not produce quality product for exportation. You can go to China and you will buy extraordinary things. But what they're sending outside of the country, this is another game. Every product that comes in Canada, in United States, is cheap. Cheaps in terms of price, cheaps in terms of quality, because Chinese, they're not crazy. They keep quality for themselves. They don't send it abroad. And this is something that we have to understand. If we do not produce nothing here, what can you expect? China has already taken control of Canada, only through economy. Now, will it take control politically? This is not a question. Michael Ma and all those police stations in Canada. There's a lot of question. No MP is debating on that. Nothing. Only ordinary people who are concerned about what's happening, and we never have answers.
The MPs, they're nobodies. Like they're just there. There's just an employee. Like the company sucks. They don't care. They just get a paycheck. But you're mentioning how we don't build anything in Canada. You also alluded to quality. Yes, we don't have manufacturing in Canada, and seemingly the people in Canada are okay with it as long as there's still a housing market that's acting as a Ponzi scheme to support the economy. We don't have replacement birth rates. You and I, we ran for the PPC. We were running around. We're saying raw, raw, Canada first. We got to support the nation, be more nationalistic. I'm sorry, but if the people decide to commit cultural suicide, to commit harikari, and just end the nation by not having children, how, like, we're not a serious country. If you don't have replacement birth rate, you're not a nation. If you don't have industry, you're not a nation. We're nothing. We're just a landmass here.
Well, it's interesting. Let's say United States takes Alberta, but they will take Alberta without the Albertans. They want the land. They don't want the people. And maybe Alberta is not a good example because they're conservative. They will not vote for the liberal. They're not progressive. But you can say the same thing about Ukraine. I want to take Ukraine, but not Ukrainians. And you mentioned something that I've noticed. When you decided to go public with your podcast and your interview and your engagement in politics with the People's Party, I remember I had the same reaction. At first, I will go and invest myself, dedicate myself to politics. I understand now that what we're doing, it is exactly that. It is exactly that. The fact that we can hold podcasts, that we can debate, that we can discuss, present argument, go back to history, go back to philosophy. This is what we're doing. Do we have? Are we successful? I don't know. The idea is not necessarily to measure success, but to at least to feel that you are expressing yourself. I think we have more political impact with alternative media now that we would have in a political party, because the political party, they are part of this structure. We're still free to express ourselves and to criticize the system from the inside, like, because we are free thinker. Still, I don't know how it will unfold, but I think at least, even if we were deceived or disappointed by what happened, you ran as a candidate, and a lot of people were disappointed. We still have. I think we did not break we call the ceiling, the glass ceiling. We did not break it yet. But the mainstream media, in my opinion, if they're not dead, they lost all credibility. And yes, you still have a category of people who will follow them, who will just watch the CBC. But those people are aging in a sense that they will just end, they will decay with the system. The younger generation are not like that. They're more active, even if they're not well educated or well cultured. At least they're more active and they're disconnecting from this mass propaganda. Are they more clever? I don't know. But me, I advise younger generation to either disconnect if they're still connect and to engage with all generation. It's not only the baby boomers or the young generation. That's what the government always want to do, to raise each every one of us against each other. We have to break those categories. They are not real. They're categories. Michael Jones is using this expression, categories of the mind. There's no such thing as white, black, uh, young, old, boomers. Those are categories. I don't want to fall in those trap where I will paint somebody because the color of his skin or because his belief. It's something much more deep than that. And a lot of people they fall for it because they are conditioned to do that.
Well, Andre, let's end it there. I think it was a good episode. It's been a hard week. I mean, 2026 has been a hard year. It's only like 2 weeks.
It's so
Yeah.
you will you last 340 40 days?
I don't even know if I'll make it till Monday.
Yeah, but that's at least it is what 85 degrees now where you are, plus 85
It gets
degrees
it, get-
Fahrenheit.
it gets cold at night. It drops down to 65.
Oh, great, great. Here it will be minus 20 tonight. So just think of me. I will do a fire. Me, I do a
Uh,
fire, and you start the air conditioning.
you bundle up with your kittens.
Well, they were quiet tonight. I don't know what happened. I was expecting that they would be, they would be like those squad team from Donald Trump who kidnapped
Maduro.
Maduro. You would have seen kittens over me, kidnapping me. It says, where is he?
Hey, it would have made for a good episode.
Yes, yes, but they're very nice. They're 4 months old now, and they're like I told you before we went live at 9 o'clock in the morning and at 9 o'clock at night. It is Indy 500. It's they run from one end of the house to the other, and it is like, when do they stop? And then suddenly they fall dead, and I have to put them on charge.
You're
They're very
you're
funny,
you're
very funny.
literally a grandparent. You have multiple grandchildren now.
Multiple, yes, of course, of course. But anyway, thanks a lot for the episode, and I hope Tim will come back from Beijing intact. No, I think he was busy. He was busy today, or he was a little bit feeling unwell, so he said that he would take a break. But I want to salute him, our colleague.
Well, before we end the episode, if you can tell Clown World what your plans are with the kittens.
Oh, that's a long story. I'll make it short. 1 month ago, a woman decided, a very nice woman, she adopted the two little male, Rijik and Mishka. And 1 week after, she called me and she said, I'm sorry, I cannot. And I told her, I said, if there's something, you call me, you don't give them away. So she called me. She said, my youngest son, Paul, he's 10 years old. He started to develop allergy. So I said, okay. So I went back to Montreal, brought back the kitten here, and we're trying to find a family for at least maybe two of them. Yeah, I would like to keep the five of them, but my wife, she has some allergies, so it's an issue. So if somebody wants to adopt a kitten, they can just reach to me. They're very beautiful. One white, two white, and two black and white. So they're very funny. Two small male and 2 female. So clown word, if you're ever interested, just DM me. We can have a chat.
I
Oh,
think
she's
she's
allergic.
allergic. So,
Anyway,
Andre, it was a good end to my Saturday, and have a good weekend, and to the audience as well. Until next week.
yes, and maybe you take a good rest, my dear Payman.
I have another podcast at 8 p.m. Eastern time with RB Ham tonight. If you guys want to join in.
I will go and watch you.
All right, I'll see you soon in the
Thank
audience.
you. Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.